bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y. Let us begin.
I now call this meeting the Amateur Detective Club to order. My name is Tristan Miller, the Saucy Sleuth.
And I'm Melissa Meli, the spy.
And it's been almost a calendar month.
Yeah, I think it's been a month
since we've recorded. So what we start off doing is going, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/adcpod. We have some bonus content there. We try to post the episodes early when we can. What else do I do?
We're on the Scavengers Network. You
Yeah.
can check out scavengersnetwork.com. Is it scavengersnetwork.com or thescavengersnetwork.com?
Scavengers Network.
Great. No the.
No, it's
Great.
like
Yes.
Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And
I
then,
think thefacebook.com does still go to Facebook, though. Probably, right? Wouldn't you think? We've got to see.
Yeah. You talk about the social media and
On social media, you can find us at ADC Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and follow us for varying exciting tidbits from our brains.
you perfect 10.
Yep.
So it does go straight to facebook.com. So the holidays happened. How were your holidays?
My actual holidays were fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got COVID.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
How was that?
Was
Was it good for you?
It wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't terrible. I am very glad that I am thrice vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I had a pretty mild case, and I feel like I set myself up well for that. And also, I'm pretty sure it was Omicron that got me. So,
yeah, I think that's something I don't think we're covering that enough, that the other variants are like still out there.
Oh yeah.
And you can get OG, as Justin McElroy likes to call it, the original flavor of COVID.
Yeah. Original recipe.
As opposed to diet COVID or whatever.
Yeah.
COVID zero.
COVID zero sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds like
no calorie
no
COVID.
No symptom COVID. That's what we should call no symptoms. Asymptomatic COVID.
Uh-huh. But you're feeling better now, which is good.
Yeah. It's been more than 14 days. It's been like 21 days since I first found out. So
confirmed.
Yeah, confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty rude how fast, because we took at-home tests.
Yeah.
And it was pretty rude how fast my test came back positive.
That's funny.
You
felt attacked?
I did. It was within like 30 seconds that second line appeared. Oh, bright, clear as day.
Because you're supposed to wait like 15 minutes and
Yeah.
not tamper with it.
Yeah.
So I recently did a home test for the first time like last week, and it looks like a lollipop when you fold it over. And I'd seen photos, and legitimately I thought people were getting like lollipops the way you do get when you go to the doctors as a kid when you got like tested, because I'd never seen an at-home kit, and I'm a moron. And I'm like, why are they handing out candy? Is this like Krispy Kreme again? Like, what's going on?
So COVID at-home tests look pretty much exactly also like pregnancy tests. And
yeah, I've only seen the stick ones for pregnancy tests.
I mean,
whereas this
they have the same principle.
Yeah, you don't want two lines.
Right. So people have been sending pictures of their COVID tests.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you don't want to be pregnant and you don't want COVID, is generally,
I don't know anyone in my generation certainly that wants either of those things.
Well, some people do want to be pregnant. So
there's a monster out there that wants COVID and to be pregnant to like get the baby immune. Isn't that interesting?
I'm sure someone does want that, but
yeah. I mean, Alabama is real.
Oof.
All of Alabama can fight me, and they will win. It's fine.
Okay. As long as you know. But yeah, so as a person who does not want to be pregnant and does not want to have COVID, it's pretty, fine for me to send a negative test. But I did. So Rich has been in Pennsylvania and I've been in New York for a couple weeks.
Rich, your boyfriend, for those of you just joining.
For those of you just joining us. And I sent him, just no explanation, a photo of my negative COVID test, and then thought better of it for a second and thought, I should specify that this is a COVID test, even though it does say COVID test on it, because it looks enough like a pregnancy test. But at the same time, either way,
good news.
Good news. We're not pregnant. I don't have COVID. Hooray. So yes, that was my test that I finally was able to do to confirm that I don't have it anymore. So now I hope super immune.
Like a superfood.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing can touch me. I don't actually think that. I assume other things can touch me, but
well, they can now because you can get within 6 feet of people. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just talking to Melissa before we started recording. My holidays were fine, by the way. Oh
yeah, I didn't ask you. It's because we talked about it,
Oh, I was because you're an only child. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we needed to rehash
my bigotry towards only children.
Or just other conversations that we've had.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But my holidays were quite good. I went home. I was lucky. I dodged everything. And like the draft. When I saw my family, it was wonderful. Played a lot of Super Mario Kart.
That's fun.
Mario Kart, I should say, because it's not Super Mario Kart.
Is it not?
No, it's just
Mario
Mario Kart.
It's just Mario Kart. Yeah, I guess it is.
With my mom. My mom loves Mario Kart. It's very cute. We watched Friends reruns while she played Angry Birds on her phone. It was great. Like, she's the most mom.
That's so good.
Yeah. Oh, right. I was talking to you before, and I started streaming more, and I've started doing as many live shows because I'm just like, it doesn't seem worth it at this point. It's also like things will calm down again in the spring, and it'll still be there, and it'll be fine. And, it's just hard during the winter months being at home again because, and I also live alone, so I'm fully prepared to go insane.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, and also there's kind of been a bad message saying like, oh, this one's milder, which it is. Fortunately for most people. However, we still got to protect the immunocompromised and kids who can't get it yet, can't get the vaccines yet. Like, we still have to protect those people because this is still, a big threat. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of activity being like, we can hear you when we say, oh, most people won't get a very bad case. And it's true. And that's why we have to, make some concessions and try a little harder when things are surging.
Yeah.
Like, we try not to get it. We still need to try not to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so far, I've been fine. Yeah. Let's see. I want to go my whole life without getting it. That's my goal. And that's what I think, again, off mic, I was talking, like, a lot of people are like, oh, you haven't gotten it yet? And I'm like, I didn't, growing up, Melissa, I didn't get chickenpox. I had to get the chickenpox vaccine.
Okay, I'm glad that exists now.
Yeah. When I was like 13.
Yeah.
And I just felt sick for a day and had to move on. But like, my friend Max, growing up, when I was about 4, had the chickenpox. And my mom was like, let's get you the chickenpox so you don't have to do it, which is very Midwestern. It's like,
right, yeah.
Chickenpox
parties.
Yeah. And
were a thing.
Absolutely. And even if, like, sometimes people take it to the point where, like, if some kid has the flu that year, you'll hang out with them, catch the flu, get over it in a day, and then, move on with your life, just so you don't have to deal with it the rest of the year. Or, like, there's kind of a mentality in a lot of places in the States where it's like, well, you play in the dirt and you make sure your immune system is good,
I mean, I kind of still have that mentality.
I think so too, and I think it's good to, like, you should try and boost your immune system naturally as much as possible. But anyway, I didn't get the chicken pox. Like, I never want to get I've never broken a bone ever.
Yeah.
I'm special and I don't get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I do get sick, like you recall last month, I got a wicked bad cold I guess it was over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I went and I got tested like 3 times and it was not the virus. The novel coronavirus, as I like to say. It's not so novel anymore, but a million people have made that joke. Anyway, so we're talking about Star Trek finally.
We're talking about Star Trek.
Do you ever skip the intro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's really scary though because we're talking about Next Generation because it goes, da da da, and then it goes bum 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 bum, but it'll still do the boom. So it's just like space, the boom.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy, Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel, what is happening? So we're talking about season 2, episode 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Elementary, My Dear Data.
Yes, indeed we are. And I want to...
Which I wrote notes about, if you can believe it.
You wrote notes?
Yeah, it opens up with the captain's log, as per usual, and they're meeting the starship Victory.
Okay.
They're meeting up with them, but they arrived early, so they have downtime.
Yeah. So we get a chill episode of TNG.
We do.
It's
that part is nice.
Yeah.
And it shows up, Data shows up, and he's in engineering, and he's like, Geordi said I have to meet him urgently.
Yeah. So are we gonna... Okay, how much do we want to say about Star Trek: The Next Generation?
And we should, I guess, how much do we have to introduce the characters?
Data is an android.
Which is not the same as a robot.
No.
He is trying to learn how to be more human.
Yes.
He's Pinocchio.
Yeah, pretty much.
They say that in the pilot.
There you go.
Yep.
And he is very good friends with Geordi LaForge in engineering.
Is Geordi LaForge Haitian?
I don't know.
Because he's got a French name. Anyway, it doesn't.
Maybe.
He could also be from France.
He could. This is the year, 2350 something or other. I just said, I forget.
But Geordi LaForge is the engineer on the Star Trek.
Played by the great LeVar Burton.
And Brett Spiner plays Mr. Data.
Yes.
Who, I don't remember his rank.
He is Lieutenant Commander.
Thank you.
And he is he yet? Or is he just Lieutenant? I don't know. I think he's Lieutenant Commander. He's second in command. Not second.
He's a second.
He's second. So Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Who also French, but also British. But did you... Okay, so there is a version, by the way.
Great.
They said, hey, Patrick, do you want to try a French accent? And he's like, it's not good. And they're like, well, just have a go. And he goes, space, the final frontier. These are the... It's like Inspector Clouseau. And they're like, yeah, okay.
I guess you're just going to be British. Sounds good.
Yeah. Played by the great Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Who...
Turns out, good actors in this one.
Pretty good actor. So
Yes,
Patrick
yes.
Stewart. But I want to say this in the context of, I will say this. Patrick Stewart is a very good actor. I got to see him live in Waiting for Godot, which
Me
is
too.
great. And I've seen him in a few things. He's a very good actor. But you can tell that this is the time during the filming of Star Trek where he wasn't really into it. There was a point in season 1, he had a hard time getting into it. And it carried on into the second season. And I at least get the vibe from him where he's not phoning it in. He's still doing a good job, but you can tell he's like the whole time. And I made a note of it, but there's that scene later on where they're in the boardroom or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, Greatest Generation calls it the McLaughlin Group, and so I can't think of it as anything else. It's like a staff meeting, senior staff meeting.
Yeah. And you can tell that, there's even a point where, it's a really good acting because it's realistic, because he's just, trying to think of what to do, but you can tell that he, doesn't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
What I mean? And I'm like, I think Patrick Stewart doesn't want to deal with this, not just Jean-Luc.
Yeah. I mean, some of the writing in the first couple of seasons, especially season 1 of TNG is rough.
Yeah, and it's, because like a lot of it's just rehashing from the original series, specifically in that first season.
Yeah. And also, this is the 80s, by the way.
Yeah, still.
Yeah.
I think this is a 90s show, so that's very interesting.
I mean, it started in,
What's wild is Voyager ended in 2001, which I was like, wow, that ran for a while.
Are they all 7 seasons, the big 3 like 90s trek?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And there's overlap with each one of them.
Yes, there is.
But yeah, which I think is quite fun.
It is. We tried to watch TNG and DS9 overlap for a bit, and then we kind of stopped doing that to just finish TNG, and then we carried on with DS9.
What I've always wanted to do is find out what times it was airing and on what days and kind of recreate that.
Oh.
Because that, is a fun little thing, but like that's so much effort.
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
It would take you a very long time to do as well.
I don't think so.
You wouldn't do it over the actual 7 years.
I thought you meant, I'm so sorry. I thought you meant like to figure it out.
Oh, no.
I was like, you can just go on IMDb and be like, it aired on this day. But yeah, it'd be a years long thing.
Yeah.
I've seen all of it twice, so it's not like...
Sure, I suppose. Yeah, because I'm still making my way through the first viewing of most of these. So this is the second time I saw Elementary, My Dear Data.
Oh, okay. I've seen it at least 3 times.
Yeah.
It has one of my favorite guest actors.
Yes.
Daniel Davis.
Who
plays Niles on The
Nanny.
And to me, more importantly, narrates the Darth Plagueis novel.
Sure.
Written by James Luceno, to the point where I watched this episode and I was like, I want to listen to that book again because he's got a perfect, because it's all about, Palpatine, blah, 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 blah. And he's got a perfect voice for that. And the way he goes, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, is so haunting. I'm going to bring it up and play it for you.
Great.
From audible.com. We no longer have a trial link. Because I'm lazy.
This is Audible. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, that's good.
It slaps so hard.
Ooh.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he does. He's a great actor. There's a scene where he's acting with Patrick Stewart at one point in this, and it's just, I mean, you stop messing around on your phone and you just sit there and you go, oh
yeah
masters at work.
100%. And then you have they're all tertiary, particularly in this episode. This is a Data Geordi episode.
It's a Data Geordi episode, yes. And
Which
we also have a central character in this episode is Dr. Pulaski, who is only in the 2nd season of TNG.
Because Gates McFadden was pregnant.
Yeah.
And she needed to take time off to be pregnant.
Yeah.
Crazy, I know.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Pulaski? Because she's kind of a controversial...
She is. A lot of people really don't like Dr. Pulaski.
Yeah.
But I don't mind her that much.
I might prefer her over Beverly.
Crusher.
Because she is often an antagonist, which I enjoy, specifically in something like this episode. She's the antagonist of the episode, which is funny considering Moriarty is in it. Spoilers.
Sure.
But she's also the catalyst for the, inciting incident a lot of the time, because she doesn't, she doesn't take guff.
Yeah.
She's not a particularly pleasant person.
No.
Which I enjoy because because it's this utopian thing.
Yeah.
Which is, I get it, it's idealized of like how the future should be. Everyone should get along, which is why the first season doesn't really work, because there's not a lot of interpersonal conflict, which is what makes good television.
Yeah.
Which is all Gene Roddenberry, and you can go watch documentaries about that. I'm not going to sit here and talk about that too much, but I really like Pulaski because of the fact that she doesn't agree with everybody, and I think that's interesting.
I do too, and the only the thing that I didn't like about her was the way she talked to Data in the first. She comes around,
Yeah.
but
Even in this episode, she clearly doesn't like him. And like I like Data a lot as a character, but I don't disagree with her a lot of the time because it's also a good way to challenge Data as a character and progress him towards what he wants.
yeah. Yes, and in this episode it makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Like, and it doesn't come off in this episode as like demeaning.
Yeah, but there's that moment early on where she calls him Data instead of Data, and he goes,
Yeah.
"That's not my name." And he goes,
Right.
"Well, what's the difference? It's the same word." He goes, "Well, one's my name, one's not."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that it's like,
But
come on, doctor.
here's the other thing about it though, is that's a really great growing moment for the both of them.
Yes, it is.
It adds humanity to Data.
Yeah.
And it adds perspective to her. And
Right.
again, having a compliment,
Right.
I think is really, I don't know, I really like the tension between it because again, it creates growth for both characters.
No, it's true. It does. I mean, yeah.
But she is a real pill.
On balance, I like Dr. Pulaski.
Mm-hmm.
And Diana Muldaur. Is that how you say her last name? I'm not sure. She's
A very good actress.
a very, very good actress.
Particularly in this episode. Has some of the most naturalist acting in the whole series. She says things the way people talk in the 21st century, at least.
Sure.
A lot of the time. And, Trek has a style of acting, which is not bad. It's just like, it's the 80s, it's television,
Yeah.
it's a sci-fi thing. So things are like, sometimes, like, at one point, Data says, "Say nothing." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's also a robot.
Yeah, Data is also, yeah.
As opposed to, don't talk, or like, don't you say nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But, other tertiary characters are not Loxana, Deanna Troi. I wish it was Loxana Troi. That would be amazing.
Oh, that's
Could
so
you
interesting.
imagine now? Here's the thing. Imagine Loxana Troi wanting to bone Moriarty.
I mean, I can imagine that.
How fun would that be?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Loxana really hits her stride in DS9, actually.
I could agree with that. But you have Deanna Troi, who is essentially the counselor, which is an advisor, and also the therapist of the ship. You have William T. Riker, who is the second in command.
Yeah.
And then you have my favorite character, Commander Worf. Because he has a couple really good moments in this episode.
Yeah.
And I love him in the same way I paint miniatures from Warhammer 40K, and I do paint orcs because I think they're fun, and I think of Klingons similarly, and even though orcs are like evil and stupider. But in Warhammer, they're not evil, they're just chaotic. But like the Klingon, like that very straightforward, because that's not how my mind works at all. I really enjoy when a character is just like, it's this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it is very interesting to see season 2 of TNG Worf, because Worf is a main character also in Deep Space Nine, which I have just finished in the past couple of weeks. And his hair in this is like,
sure, yeah, with the berries and cream look.
Yeah.
I'm a little, let me see. I'm a little lad that likes berries and cream.
Oh, there you go.
That's one of my favorite voices to do, because everyone's like, what the hell?
Okay, so you're calling these tertiary characters. Who do you think of as the secondary character? And
in this episode, like they have all of these characters have like 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm like-
specifically this episode.
Right, yeah.
Like Barclay's a tertiary character.
Right. In
Guinan is unfortunately
right.
a tertiary character.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. But yeah. So this is basically a Data episode with a lot of Pulaski and quite a bit of Geordi.
Yeah, I wish they would have given. I wish there were more Geordi episodes, is what I'll say. He's
Yes.
often a companion piece to somebody else.
Yeah, and there's generally 1 or 2 characters that it feels like they don't know how to write.
And Geordi is one of them.
Geordi is unfortunately one of them.
Mm.
And unfortunately also the women in TNG.
What, you don't like the episode where Beverly has sex with a Victorian ghost? You don't like that episode? A real episode.
And it's in the last season, which was actually pretty good for the most part.
That is an enjoyable episode, but for all the wrong reasons.
Right. It's not like, okay, so there's an episode in the first season of Star Trek TNG called Code of Honor, which is just bad. Like, it's not fun to watch, and it's trying not to be racist, but is.
Sure.
Like, they just don't know what they're doing. It's all sorts of a mess.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not even fun to watch. Whereas Sub Rosa, the candle, if you've seen it, you'll understand, where Beverly Crusher has sex with a candle ghost. And that is fun to watch. And part of the reason is because it is directed by very good director, Jonathan Frakes. Mm-hmm. And Gates McFadden, who plays Beverly Crusher, just goes all in with it.
Yeah, there's no hesitation.
No, and they're like, well, I guess if we're doing this, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And they do, and it is a wild experience. Recommend watching it. It's not like
even
good.
if you haven't seen any of the other, just start with that one. That's the one when people are like, Tristan, where should you start with Star Trek? And I'm like, that episode, because it gets it out of the way.
The real answer is you should watch Measure of a Man.
Probably. That's certainly one of the best of the I think Star Trek at its best in as much as like, oh, this is allegorical.
Yes, and it's also early enough TNG that, you know, we're still kind of getting to know the characters, getting into it, but it sets up a lot.
Yeah, and
it is a quintessential Star Trek episode, and we'll probably be like, oh, okay,
yeah,
I can figure out if I like Star Trek from here. But yeah, if you just want to watch something wild, go for Sub Rosa.
Yeah. Which I love, because like I like it weird. I do. I like it weird. I mean, small episodes are nice. The companion episode to this one is one of my favorite episodes.
It's really good.
And blows this one out of the water. Like this is a setup to a punchline that is far better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's also a weird episode. The one where one of my favorites is one where a kid's dad dies and he latches onto Data and pretends to be an android because they don't have feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's compelling because I've done that. Like I've gone, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, and Data is an interesting character. Okay, so the thing about Data, he's like the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz, or the Tin Man. You know, it's like in that he's like, I want to be more human, and in kind of doing that, it's like, okay, but you are. I get where you think you aren't, but you are already like you're better at humaning than a lot of humans. Whereas like the Scarecrow, has some of the best ideas in the Wizard of Oz. And Tin Man is one of them, you know, has some of the most
heartfelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. But then there are moments where it's like he's just so off base.
Yeah.
Which also, okay, actually another good episode to start with is, I can't remember the title of it, but where he makes his own kid.
Yeah.
The Data episode.
Yeah.
My favorite episode of TNG might be Data's Day, which is he works the night shift.
Yeah.
So you get to see all the garbage, but it only works within the context of having seen the rest of the...
It does, yeah.
Because otherwise you're like, because it's subverting something.
Right.
You know.
I also really like Lower Decks, which is the title of an episode of TNG.
As well as a cartoon.
As well as now a series. But the Lower Decks episode of TNG is an excellent episode, but again, it's a complete subversion of everything, because it's through the perspective of like the ensigns, like the kids that just got to the Starship Enterprise and are, you know, doing their jobs. The podcast that Tristan and I really want to make, which is Tristan and Melissa shouldn't be making the Star Trek podcast.
Yeah, which is, we're going to be covering all of the mystery, quote unquote, episodes because of Star Trek, which is also something that, like, we had to have a discussion because there are a lot of mystery episodes because there are a lot of anomalies. They're like, oh, literally, it's a mystery. You have to figure out what this entity is. And I'm like, well, that's not a it is, but it isn't.
And I think what we're going with is this is a literal Sherlock Holmes episode, or someone has been murdered and we need to solve it.
Yeah, like there's a couple episodes of DS9 that are like that, but they're closer to something that is like NCIS rather than like Poirot.
Right.
What it would have been so much fun if like someone on Voyager or something would have wanted to play Poirot instead of Sherlock Holmes. That would have been fun.
Yeah, it would have been fun.
Wouldn't it have been okay, we got to get into this actual episode.
We do.
But wouldn't it be fun if, like, rather than... Because if Data... He's read all the Sherlock Holmes, but if he hadn't read of any Agatha Christie, just done one of those mysteries instead?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have been interesting?
Yeah, it would have.
Anyway.
So it makes sense. So, okay.
So...
Data gets called into... Engineering, and the actress who he's talking to, who is, like, a one-off character...
Yeah.
She actually does a really great job because she looks like the cat that got the canary. Like, she's got a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's got a fun secret that she doesn't want to tell Data yet. And I'm like, what is her deal? Like, what? Why is she so excited that Data is going to go visit Geordi in engineering? And then there's a big payoff.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
And to see an actress have like 3 lines in them.
Yeah, do a walk-on and do very well. Yeah, absolutely.
She is acting up a storm.
She's a series regular. She's a recurring.
Is she?
Yeah, she's in engineering a lot. She's someone they hired to play someone in engineering.
Great, like Nurse Ogawa in in medical eventually.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's been a bit since I've seen the second season of this television show.
So he rushes down to engineering, and Geordi has a model boat.
Yeah.
A model ship.
Model ship.
And it's of the original Victory, who the captain, he and the captain of the Victory that they're meeting, they were ensigns together in the academy. They served on the same ship, which I think was the Victory. So he's giving it as a gift, to, a little bit of nostalgia. Data, they have a conversation, and Data's like, I don't get it. And he says one of the principles of humanity is always wanting what you can't have, which is a thematic thing throughout this whole episode. And then Data puts him on blast in a really great, and it makes me laugh every time, because they have this conversation, it's kind of nice, and he's like, oh, by the way, this boat, blah, 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 blah. Data's like, I don't understand. Then they both stand up, and Data goes, Geordi, you said this was urgent.
Right, yeah.
Which is very good. And he goes, oh, it is, because we have leisure time. We're going to go to the holodeck. If you don't know what the holodeck is, it basically projects worlds. It's a little room that has tape on the ground, and you can tell it's tape. I have a 1080p projector that I've been watching this on, and then it's like a 4K screen on my Mac, and it's like you can see the rivets. You're not, like, it was never intended. But it's a room where you can project different holographic simulations.
Right. So it's like you can actually really step into your VR headset without a VR headset.
Yes.
And they actually do a lot of Is this the first holodeck episode of TNG?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because they do a lot of this is how a holodeck works.
Can I tell you why, though? Because, and this happens a few times with bits of information that we've already learned, because you'll notice that at that event, them giving more exposition to something we've already had happens immediately after the commercial break.
Sure.
So when you're tuning in, and if you are just flipping through and you're like, oh, Star Trek is on, what's going on?
Yeah.
They have someone go, oh, this is what's happening, the situation we're all in. And that's part of television, the writing, that I miss.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, right, we used to, I mean, if you have Hulu, you used to have commercials, but we used to really have to take this into account.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
they go down to the holodeck 2.
Mhm.
Holodeck 2. Oh, of course, it's a deck like a ship. I'm
Yeah.
literally putting that together now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
In DS9, which is the station,
Yeah.
they call it a holo suite.
Yes, they do. And I was like, okay. Because I always assumed that was like, just because you're making money on it. But yeah, so I always find it interesting when someone says holodeck or like on the HoloNet and Star Wars or a hologram. Because they're not wrong, but they could be righter. But I also say holla, like it's like, again, like the same way I would say winda.
Yeah.
Anyway, they go to the holodeck and they're gonna play Sherlock Holmes.
They're going to play Sherlock Holmes. So it makes sense that Data likes Sherlock Holmes because
They both
Sherlock-
have autism. I'm so sorry.
yeah.
Actually,
mean-
though, it's like because they both, yeah.
I
I'm not wrong, but it was impolite.
no, it is one of those things that Sherlock Holmes is portrayed as someone who is neurodivergent and has, particular
Set of skills.
foibles. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's very smart and he has but he's not very compassionate, or not compassionate, but like, what is the word I'm looking for?
Considerate.
Considerate.
Yeah, he doesn't consider other people. He's depending on the portrayal, either someone who is like misguided and doesn't let people know
Mm-hmm.
that he likes them, like Robert Downey Jr.'s is very much that, of like he doesn't show that he really loves Watson.
Right.
Or like a sociopathic nightmare like Benedict Cumberbatch is.
Okay, we won't litigate this.
Yeah, we
But-
get, or Johnny Depp's in Sherlock Holmes, who was just a jerk.
Oh yeah.
Who was like the most irredeemable version, which I appreciate because I don't much care for Sherlock Holmes, because you get everything good about Sherlock Holmes plus a good personality in Poirot. That is
Yeah.
my opinion about Poirot and why I prefer him. Anyway, but Data connects with Sherlock. That makes sense.
Because as an android, he has a harder time connecting to like human idiosyncrasies.
Yes.
So-
The robot has social anxiety.
He kind of does.
Yeah.
So he's going through Holmes's study, and of course, Geordie's playing Watson.
Yeah, of course.
and
Poor Geordie. Constantly sidelined.
They're all dressed. They're all dressed up in really fun Sherlock Holmes costumes.
So something that bothers me about the holodeck is, why wouldn't you just put holographic projections on your suit rather than dress up?
I do not know.
It bugs me so much. Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, I'm not changing on my uniform for this.
Yeah.
I would be like, just project a costume onto me. Oh, what? There was some other sci-fi show that I was watching that they did that. Where they like did disguises that way.
Yeah.
Holographic. What was that? It's always interesting to hear someone to not be able to remember something on an audio medium.
I know. It's
always
the
like,
best.
Let me think here for a second. What was it?
The best way to podcast.
What? But honest to God, what was it? I think it might have been Star Wars, a book.
Star Wars, a book.
Yeah, a book, a Star Wars novel or something.
Yeah, so they're going through, and I don't know if this is the first episode where Data pulls out his violin, but
It is. This is the introduction to the violin, I believe.
great, because Data plays the violin a lot in this series, and plays it beautifully, and it basically makes clear to Geordie and the audience,
Mm-hmm.
as Geordie is our proxy, that Data knows everything about Sherlock Holmes.
Because he's a loser. No.
And he's read all the books, and
He stands Sherlock
he
Holmes.
stands Sherlock Holmes a lot.
And there's a moment in this scene where Geordie starts writing down, and I'm sorry, LeVar. I can tell that you are not writing what you're saying. You are just scribbling. Come on, Sandy Meisner it up. Write what you're writing.
Nah.
He's a good actor, and I was like, come on, you're better than this. You're letting me down, LeVar.
Oh,
I
dear.
didn't realize. My sibling met him. And LeVar Burton's like 5'5".
Oh yeah.
I just assumed he was tall. I don't know why. But then rewatching this, I was like, oh, he's who Randy Newman's singing about.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, stand him up next to
Frakes.
and
But what they do with that for framing is often when Geordi and Frakes, fine, whatever, are together in the frame, Jonathan is leaning down to look at a console to compensate for the height differential.
Yeah, and also Riker leans a lot because
He does lean.
He has a bad back.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has like bad knees or something. You can tell by the way he walks. He's got that John Wayne walk of like, oof, I'm tall and this sucks.
Yeah, Frakes has a bad back that started, I believe, at some point during this, or got worse as it went on.
I believe he's talked about part of it's the boots as well that they put everyone in, and everyone has those dumb bodysuits to make everyone look jacked for no reason.
Yeah.
Speaking of Frakes, that series he does, I can't remember what it's called, but that he hosts about weird stuff is available on Amazon Prime, and I am gonna sit and watch all of that.
Oh, yes.
So, anyway, they're in the holosuite, and then Inspector Lestrade comes in and says this is the case, that's the problem, and then Data knows it immediately, solves it within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Geordi gets really mad.
Yeah.
And storms off.
Yeah.
And then they go to 10 Forward, which is their bar and lounge area.
Which, by the way, because we haven't talked about Disney World on the podcast yet, they have a new space restaurant.
Espressrant?
Yeah.
Espressrant.
Yeah.
I love Espressrant in my cappuccino.
And I first started seeing pictures of this. It's a new restaurant, so I haven't been there yet. And it looks like 10 Forward.
That's fun.
It is. And it can't be on purpose.
No.
But maybe it is a little bit.
I'm sure probably subconsciously at the very least.
Yeah.
Like how everything from Mac looks like it's part of the Star Trek.
Yeah. And I'm so excited about it. And it's because I want to be at 10 Forward.
Of course.
And that's not actually a Disney thing. So it's just a very funny, like, not a dissonance cognitively, but I'm very amused by the whole thing. All right.
Yeah. So they go to 10 Forward, and Geordi is basically like, Data, you dumb. You dumb. I wanted to... And to Data's credit, Geordi does a really bad job explaining why the experience was bad.
He does.
He does a really bad job.
Yeah.
Because he just keeps emphasizing, like, mystery. Like, I was looking forward to that. Whereas he's like, oh, so I should have prolonged the series of events. And he's like, well, there's no game, there's no fun. But he keeps going, like, he just explains it in just such a bad way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel for Data in that moment because I would be like, Geordi, what are you talking about?
Right.
Whereas, like, you sit down and go, well, the fun of it is solving the mystery and doing that together and the tension that's built.
Right.
Whereas since Data is a computer, he doesn't understand that.
Yeah. And that's the point that Dr. Catherine Pulaski, sitting at the next table.
Beautiful rack focus to her.
Yeah.
Love it. Like a villain entrance. Like, it's so good. She might as well, like, turned around and be like, so, Mr. Bond. It's so good. I love her performance in this so much.
Yes. And she actually explains it better to Data.
Yes. And admittedly, Geordi is an engineer. They're not known for their social skills.
And I would think that in, the 24th century, maybe doctors have a little bit more of psychology built into their curriculum as well.
As much as she is kind of curt with Data, she has a good bedside manner with everybody else.
She does.
She's just bigoted against a robot. And admittedly, from her point of view, he is a robot and does not have feelings.
Yeah.
And doesn't also have feelings.
So, okay.
We're going to get into it.
Kind of what I was trying to say before, because Data kind of does have feelings sometimes, but
it's
then it is inconsistent.
And it bugs me so much.
Yeah, me
and
too.
Also Brett Spiner, who does a great job acting the part, obviously. But sometimes his performance feels more like a guy, and sometimes it feels like a robot. But where it's best, and there's a moment coming up in this episode where he shines that I'm going to talk about in a moment, where he combines the two, and you can see a robot trying to mimic human behavior.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful moment that comes up in literally 2 seconds, 2 lines of dialogue. But yeah, I think also from Pulaski's perspective, it's like, oh, I'm being rude to a computer. Who gives a crap?
Yeah, no. And that makes sense.
You
it
know.
does. But, I mean, when she first meets him, Data says, Data is not my name.
Yeah.
And, like, cares.
Yeah.
Like a person would, that he's being called the wrong thing.
Also cares like a computer would, because it's an algorithm, and going, well, that input is incorrect.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yep. So, like, again, it's a matter of perspective. And the thing is, both are true.
Yeah.
And they take a lot of time exploring that.
They do.
They take a lot of time exploring that.
Yeah.
And some of it's really interesting, and some of it's, like, weird.
And then they continue doing it in Picard.
And also in DS9. And guess what? Also in Voyager. There's always a character that is not human that needs to learn how to be more human.
Right.
Now, there's one of my favorite Data episodes is where he starts dating someone.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, cool, we'll have a shot at love with Tequila. Do you remember that reality? It's fine. Shot at love with Data.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work because he's a robot. He can't do it in the same way.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. And, like, again, with the allegory of being neurodivergent, and, like, that's, an interesting thing, but it's obviously not a one-to-one.
No.
But you can, like, read it that way.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so Pulaski, if you want to take this, basically says,
well, you need to... Data is going to always solve every Sherlock Holmes thing. What you need, because if Data knows it, he can't not solve it.
Yes. And also that it's all by rote.
Yeah.
And it's not actual deductive reasoning. And it's what is the word? They get into a thing of, like, the challenge. There's no challenge there because there's no possibility of failure.
Right.
And Data says something wild, which again, I forgot this is season 2. He goes, oh, so you're saying failure is sometimes better than winning? And she's like, and this is the part of the performance that I really like when she's explaining it, because it, like, she's talking to a child in a really warm way, actually.
Yeah.
Where she goes, some of the best opportunities to learn are through failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
And again, her performance is, again, so natural.
Yeah.
Specifically next to Brett Spiner, who is playing a robot. And so it's unnatural on purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a moment where Geordi goes, I don't think you're giving him enough credit. Deductive reasoning is one of Data's strong suits. And if you can pull up where he says that, Brett Spiner's smile in that is hilarious. Because he's smiling like he's trying to, like, convey, oh, I'm happy that my friend has said something.
Yeah.
But he's a robot, so he doesn't feel the happiness because he can't feel things. So the smile is, like, uncanny valley. It's perfect. It made me die with laughter. It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's very intentional from Brett.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really very difficult to litigate whether
that's
Data actually has feelings.
Which is the whole point of the character.
Yeah.
There's another really great moment seasons later where someone makes a joke and everyone's laughing. And he goes, ah, ha, 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 ha. So, Geordi. And, like, it's so good because he's clearly mimicking what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, and obviously as it goes on, he becomes more and more self-aware, which is, how people kind of define whether or not someone has a soul.
Yeah. So the challenge of... So what Dr. Pulaski basically proposes is, if there is a Sherlock Holmes mystery that Data doesn't know, he won't be able to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And Geordi says, I think he can.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, all right, I guess. So basically it's like, all right, let's see if this works.
Yeah, let's make a bet.
So Pulaski puts on some fun clothes, and
again, just project the clothes.
I know. I mean, truly love the costume style. And
Yes.
so, I mean, I love love a cape, little capelet, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
a jacket cinches at the waist with a long skirt.
Mm-hmm. A
hat.
bustle.
The bustle is like the oh yeah, right.
That's why when you say hustle your bustle, it means move your ass.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right.
So- For those of you who couldn't see me, I just tapped my butt. Something I often do. I guess no one else will. No,
I don't
no,
think that's true.
that is not true at all. Don't want to get too deep in the weeds.
There you go.
So they go to the holodeck, and then they have a scene from London. You
Yes.
know, they're in the London street, and Pulaski hasn't gone to many holodecks, apparently, and so they're kind of explaining how it works, which is
Yeah.
basically the computer projects a hologram on the wall, and then will also move the hologram along with you.
Yeah,
So it basically feels like it's real.
it's real cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you were to actually get up against a wall,
You would knock into it.
but you kind of can't based
Because
on
it'd be...
It's really
Yeah.
it's very fascinating, cool technology. And also the whole holodeck / holosuite technology gets very muddied in a lot of episodes.
For sure.
Like the rules of
Yeah.
they get messed around
Which
with.
is... go ahead.
Just like based on convenience and what they want to do with the episode.
Which is why when people go, well, Star Trek is sci-fi and Star Wars is space fantasy, I'm like, you're not wrong, but also Star Trek a lot of the times doesn't make any sense. Like it's still fanciful. It's still fiction with a big F. With a big capital F fiction.
Oh, and also like the whole time travel rules in Star Trek are like
And
all sorts of all over
even
the
when
place.
they do alternate dimensions, it doesn't make sense. Like it's all like based off in scientific theory, sure, but like it's not no more realistic
Yeah.
than a guy with a laser sword. Like anyway.
No, I hear you. I like both things too.
I do too.
Yep.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So they're in there, and then the guy runs, and he goes, Data goes, that's a diversion.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to a place at the building, and there's a bell. He goes, the real person was such and such and so, and he was going to get murdered by, and then he pulls down a bell, and a snake drops out,
Yeah, it's wild.
which is dope.
Yeah.
If I murder someone, I might choose just like buying a venomous snake. That would be just like, a snake got in. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't
yeah,
that a weird thing to think about?
it is. But yeah, so basically Data figures it out.
Because it's two Sherlock Holmes stories combined.
Yeah.
And I might start doing this. Pulaski goes, no, fraud. And the idea of pointing at someone and going, fraud, is so good. It's like someone calling someone a coward. I think it's so good.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yes. So she says we need an opponent that has the ability to defeat him.
Yes.
And so Geordi asks the computer to come up with an opponent that will beat Data.
Has a possibility
Yeah.
of. And importantly, the way he summons the computer is he says the word arch, and then an arch appears with the computer that allows access to it.
Yes.
And during this moment,
Mm-hmm.
a person from the holodeck sees this occur,
Yes.
who is later to be revealed as James Moriarty, played by the wonderful Daniel Davis.
Yes.
From The Nanny and the previous novel that as mentioned.
Yes. So then we cut to the bridge, and
Which gives us another great Worf moment, because he
Mhm.
goes, one moment. And then and Riker goes, what is it? And he goes, well, there's a power surge, but it's gone now.
Yeah.
You know, and which is basically, I'm like, dude, your whole job is security. He's like chief of security on this ship.
oh yeah,
And she's like, weird, the computer did a thing. I don't know about that.
I really enjoy Worf, but he's not a very good chief of security.
I think we see him in his worst moments is the thing. It's like,
I
because
know,
if
yeah.
he was good at it, there would be
No story.
Exactly, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
But
it is. Yeah.
I think he's far better placed in DS9.
Yeah.
His role within the context of the crew
Yes.
is far superior in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. But he's a very funny character because even just like the pinnacle of it is there's a, for those of you who aren't familiar, there's a character named Q that is omnipotent. In one episode, he becomes mortal. And he goes, and no one believes him. And he goes, what do I have to do to convince you that I'm mortal? And Worf just goes, die. And that's perfect.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's so great. And Michael Dorn, who plays Worf, is just absolutely loves it. Like, just loves being Worf. And there is an episode in Deep Space Nine where, because you constantly, since he's a Klingon, you see him in very heavy makeup and prosthetics all the time.
Yes.
And there is an episode in Deep Space Nine where it's almost like a dream. I think it is.
Yeah.
And they all go back to like the 50s.
Yeah, the 50s or 60s, and it's basically one of the characters is writing Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which is like, who are you, Stephen King? Come on, you're better than this.
No, but it's very fun, and you also get to see lots of characters who play aliens play humans, and Michael Dorn just comes in as a baseball player, like full charm on, hitting on everybody.
Yep.
And like almost polar opposite from Worf. And at first I was like, who the
Yeah. It's really good.
It's so great. And he's so charming and so I mean, Worf is very fish out of water and very serious.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. So it's just it's delightful.
So basically, they've made the computer make an opponent that's worthy of Data.
Yep.
And then it's been imprinted on James Moriarty, who has also simultaneously figured out that all is not what it seems.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis being a hologram.
Right. Because the thing is, holograms are not aware that they're holograms.
No, because they're a computer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, my GarageBand suddenly has sentience. Like, my program, my app. Tinder is all of a sudden like, what are you doing?
Tinder's like, are you sure you want to swipe right on that person? I feel like you maybe shouldn't.
Yeah. There's an age differential here, and
actually, do you want to go out with me?
that's the film Her.
Yeah, it is.
That's the film Joaquin Phoenix movie Her.
Yeah.
But basically, for some reason, they go out and then they come back in, and
yeah,
they're called away for some reason.
Well,
right?
First Data like real quick solves a murder.
Oh yeah.
As Moriarty is off, kind of exploring like the Arch.
Yeah, he calls it, and it comes back, and it's like, do you want to input anything? He goes, not at this time, and it just disappears, and he's like, oh, and then a woman goes, black magic, and he goes,
yeah,
the best kind, I'm sure. And again, his performance is pitch perfect.
Yeah.
There's a moment, I think it occurs around this time, where they're walking into London again. Oh, because the system reboots. That's why they enter again.
Okay.
Because it's a computer and it has to reboot.
Yeah.
But they walk into London again, and there's just a really hot lady that like walks past Geordi, and he turns his head, and then Data turns his head to mimic checking her out, and it's really funny. I didn't notice except for the second time I watched it, and I also said literally out loud when it happens, who is that? and just an extra that they just wanted to have a moment with. It's very interesting.
Yeah, we love an extra moment.
Yes.
So we've just solved a murder.
Oh yeah, the dead guy, right? That's been strangled by his wife, who is a convict.
Yeah. And it's Data's making it very clear that he can solve Sherlock Holmes mysteries. Like, yep, not a problem.
And Pulaski has been kidnapped.
Yeah. While they were solving the murder, Pulaski's been kidnapped.
Ba-ba-ba.
And Data talks about how he knows she's been kidnapped because she doesn't have footprints.
So she'd been picking up. And there's a line that he says that's just incorrect. He says left-footed means left-handed. And that is not true. I am a left-footed person, but a right-handed person.
Huh.
Yeah, I kick with my left foot instinctively.
There you go.
Yep, that does not mean anything. So, screw you, writers of TNG, I guess.
I just want everyone to know that Tristan's iPad is reminding them to have dinner.
Yes. It's 5 o'clock. That's time for dinner. I eat lunch at 11 and dinner at 5. Because I'm old.
Yeah.
I have a heating pad on my couch.
Yeah, you do. That's just good sense, though.
It's so nice. It really is, and it it makes it easier to fall asleep for me, which is hard.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
so we find a false door, and we go in it, and we find a lair.
Yeah. And voila, James Moriarty. And Data's deduced, if you will.
Yeah.
That it's James Moriarty that the computers put all this stuff into because it's the thing that makes sense logically, if you will.
Holmes's greatest
his arch
enemy.
Nemesis.
Yeah. Ah.
His arch Star Trek nemesis.
And then, so they're in this lair.
His he lurks in his lurkum.
Yep. With some red couches. And lots of beams.
Yeah, they went all out with the
They really did.
production design on this episode.
You can tell they were making one series of Star Trek at the time.
Oh, for sure.
Budget all the budget went into this episode.
Yeah.
Which is wild because it's like practically completely inconsequential to the rest of the series.
Yeah. And James Moriarty shows up and he's like, I know that you're not who you say you are, and that that there's something else going on here. And he hands Data a picture, and it's of the Enterprise. And Data, I guess we don't learn that because Data just immediately leaves. And Geordi's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And then, Moriarty's like, why do you fear what you can't understand?
And in the meantime, he does say that he has Pulaski and that she's unharmed, but he'll hurt her if he has to.
Yeah, which is like, again, this performance is so good because Data goes, have you hurt her? And he goes, I will if I have to. Yeah. And it's said so matter of fact. Nothing evil about him.
Right.
Which is, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. The performance is so good.
Yeah.
Daniel, out of the park.
Yeah. So when they're figuring out that Pulaski has been kidnapped, they find a shoe of hers.
Yes.
And I noticed in this watch that it was laced entirely up.
You mean like her boot?
Yeah, her little booty.
Was like laced all the way, so there's no way it could have fallen off. Unless the shoes were too big.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is like, okay, well then what's is the replicator off?
I don't know. It was really weird.
Yeah, that's a very strange. I mean, it's very cinematic, but like.
Yeah.
So, Data goes to Jean-Luc, Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, they have a meeting with the senior staff.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And they're like, okay, what to do? And again, I love Worf so much. He goes, I could lead a security team in and go get her, which is the most logical, straightforward thing. And Data's like, well, okay, so the protocols that are on the holodeck that disallow the computer program from hurting us most likely have been disabled. And they're like, okay. And then Geordi says something insane. He goes, I could do a particle beam that disperses all of the energy of the holodeck and it would go away. And then Picard hits him with, what about Pulaski? And he goes, she'd die. And I'm like, then what the hell? What you say that for, though? Is the thing.
Also,
just ripped to Pulaski, I guess.
Yeah. Also, now that I have the captions on as I'm scrubbing through this, I thought I caught this. And at one point, Picard just says, merde, which means...
He is French.
Yeah, but it is an actual curse word in French.
Absolutely it is.
Which is fun. So they got it on TV because it's French.
Exactly. And
it's also what you say to dancers.
Meaning good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I did know.
Yeah.
If you can believe it, I had a few dancer friends in high school. But like, okay, so what do we do? And Data's basically like, I think we should just play along. That seems the safest option. And Picard gives like a big ol' sigh and he goes, fine.
Yeah.
I'll go down to the holodeck with you. And he does. Riker also, you get in this senior staff meeting, you know, you have Deanna going, I sense that she's okay.
So the thing about Deanna Troi is that she is from a planet. She is of an alien species.
Betazoid.
Yeah.
She's mixed raced.
Yeah, she's half human. She's half Betazoid. Planet is Beta Z.
Which is like, that's
lazy.
Yeah,
writing.
I'm like, isn't that just B7? That's just B7.
Yeah.
It's like a vitamin.
And so the thing about Betazoids is that they're empaths.
Beta Zoidberg, is that anything?
Sure. Is that
I feel she's upset.
So yeah, they can sense, you know,
Yeah,
disturbances in the force or whatever.
Basically, they're incredibly empathic and they have telepathic abilities.
Yeah. And in the first episode, she has a conversation with Riker in
his
in
mind.
their heads. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is wild.
Imagine what they did in Star Wars Last Jedi, but like infinitely worse.
Right, they're trying to like...
Boy, can we talk about how the pilot stinks for a second? That first episode of TNG is rough.
It's real rough.
It's a slog. Do not start with it.
Also,
Oof.
unless you're like me, and you have to. But she also calls him Bill, and it's the only time anyone ever calls Will Riker Bill.
I wish they would keep that. Billy Riker, that'd be so funny. I think people who Riker has had sex with call him Bill. In the sack.
I mean, listen.
So everybody calls him Bill.
Because who hasn't had sex with William T. Riker?
And I said this line on stage, and it's a good joke, I think. And I think Riker is a dog. He's not a pig. You know, he's a dog. He's horny, and I'm a dog too. I'm too horny to function. I'm too function to horny sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm a dog because I will try to hump your leg, but you'll still feel like I love you. As opposed to a pig.
Right.
Anyhow, so they go, okay, so we're going to just play along with this computer program that's gone wild.
So everybody's going to get dressed up.
Which leads to my favorite moment in the whole thing, besides Data's smile. Worf shows up in a tuxedo, and Riker just goes, nice suit. He goes, thank you. And it's so good, because again, it's just so buttoned up. It's so funny. It's like weirdly almost British. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then Picard has a top hat, which is, okay, we're having fun here.
We are having fun here. The writers love to do these holodeck episodes and put them in
ridiculous costumes. Oh boy. So they go into the holodeck and then they reiterate that the safety protocols have been disengaged because we've cut to a commercial break.
Yes. And then
because they almost get mugged.
Right. But we do get a scene right before that with Dr. Pulaski and
Professor Moriarty.
Professor Moriarty.
What is his degree in, do you think? What do you think he teaches? Do you think he's like a paleontologist, like Ross Geller?
Maybe he's a cook. A baker. No, he's not. He just apparently has like lots of scones and crumpets that are delicious.
That he's... Which also brings something interesting with the way the holodeck works, is because it converts energy into matter. Mm-hmm. And so when she eats the crumpets, she's actually eating something that's just going to go away later. Isn't that weird?
I know. It's really wild.
Mm-hmm.
Also, She's okay. So, to get really in the weeds of Star Trek, they have
We're already...
I know.
We have machetes.
Replicated food. They use a replicator to make their food, and like they have synthahol, which is, you know,
fake alcohol.
Fake alcohol, and it doesn't really get you drunk
because they couldn't call it fuck alcohol.
Yeah. And
I'm so sorry, I made myself laugh.
So synthahol doesn't get you drunk, and so like there's a lot made of replicator food is fine.
Oh yeah, it's like
but
rations.
But it's not like great.
Have you gotten to the food part of Voyager?
No.
They're
No.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, I did see Neelix cooking stuff, and
yeah, they hire a guy to be a cook because they're stranded, and they're like, the replicators, we can't use them that much, and also the food stinks.
Yeah.
So they hire a guy to be a cook.
So yes, in this holodeck, it seems like she's like really into the tea and crumpets, like they're really good, like someone made them like real food, because there's lots of fuss made about when they have like real food that's not replicated, it's like a whole big deal, or when they like actually have a bottle of alcohol.
Yes.
Deep Space Nine, this all goes away because they're constantly drinking real alcohol in that show.
Yes, which is very good.
Yeah.
Now, here's, I'll posit an idea. Because more power is being diverted to the holodeck, perhaps that it is enhanced because the holodeck is eating up more power.
Okay.
That's what I would explain away in this moment.
Sure.
Also, Pulaski's been on a holodeck like twice, so she doesn't know no better.
Yeah, but she eats replicated food all the time.
That's true. But what's the difference? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe
I know this.
It feels like kind of like this scene does feel like, you know, you see stereotypically a little girl at a tea party with her stuffed animals.
Yeah.
It feels like, yes, yummy yum.
So Moriarty is still trying to figure out what's going on. He's pressing Pulaski for info. But he also seems to, like, they're getting along great. They're having a nice little tea party.
Yeah, because she doesn't want a fuss made. He doesn't want a fuss made. He just wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he calls the Arch at one point, and he's trying to figure out what's going on there.
Is he a chemist?
Yeah, he is like a professor in the same way like Sherlock Holmes is like they're both like, I know everything.
Yeah, he's got lots of equations up on the chalkboard and some beakers boiling.
That poor Muppet.
Oh no.
Hey Siri, what is Professor Moriarty's degree in? So, there's a real Moriarty is an actual surname apparently.
Oh yeah, sure.
Did not know. So the first thing that came is a bachelor's degree in psychology and interdisciplinary and science from the University of South Florida, which is not...
Probably not the Moriarty we mean.
No, mathematics.
Okay.
Just mathematics.
So he does have lots of math up on the board.
When was the last time you used math that wasn't for tipping?
Like today.
Oh, damn.
When I tried to figure out how much money was in my bank account, really? Because I have a payment outstanding.
So they're getting along fine, and he's like, I'll figure everything out, even if you don't say anything, I'll figure it out. And she's like, well, if you're going to figure it out and I don't say anything, I'm not going to say anything. It's all very like...
Yeah. And she's like, well, I think you've gotten everything out of me you possibly can, and I'm going to go now. But...
we both saluted at the same time. Very cute.
And so she basically says, well, what use do you have for me right now? And he says, you are the worm to the fisherman. You are as the worm is to the fisherman. You are bait.
Yeah. And he goes, because I need
Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, who is that? And he's like, this whole time you could tell he's like, stop it. Stop. I know you know. Stop. It's very good.
Yeah.
So then Data and Picard almost get mugged, and then they go to Moriarty, and then basically Picard's like, so you are a hologram. Oops. Somehow you gain sentience, and we can't do anything about it except for save the program, and then we'll figure it out eventually, and then when we figure that out, we'll let you out again.
Right. Basically, Moriarty is saying, so I'm going to die.
Yeah, I'm going to just go away forever if you shut off this program. That sucks. I know that I'm alive now. You can't just take that away from me. All I want is what everyone wants, which is to be alive.
Right.
Which is mirrored by Data.
Yeah. Data's like whole thing.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that the ship's computer gets there? This is another thing that's in the weed. This is the ship's computer. This is the Enterprise.
Yeah.
The Enterprise is alive in a way.
Yeah.
And that's weird. And it gets there so much faster than Data ever can. Isn't that interesting? Because Moriarty gets there like that. He's like, I know what I am. I know what I have to do to be human immediately.
So I wonder if it's because the Enterprise has so much more
Power.
data
Oh.
than Data does. No, but
But yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, the computer is getting input with like everybody's logs and understands everybody's phone calls and hears everybody's phone calls and all that stuff. So
yeah, their telephone calls on the USS Enterprise. Their communications, yeah. Excuse me.
Their communications, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's just Zoom. It's just they're on Zoom. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, TGG calls it FaceTime. I mean, it is. It's FaceTime.
It's just FaceTime. Oh my gosh. Apple is obsessed with looking like Star Trek, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm constantly half. Like, either way, I want my home to look like a cabin. It's either the cabin of the Starship Enterprise or a cabin from the Great Northern from Twin Peaks. Those are my two aesthetics constantly getting mushed together.
Yes. Oh, and we get a wonderful early Star Trek moment where we
Melissa is showing me on my iPad.
yeah, except that I think that I skipped too far.
No.
Anyway, we get a moment where they have to do the thing where they lean one way and lean another,
yeah, as if
because the bridge is like
the ship is getting moved in a weird way.
Yeah, most of these characters in this show, like the series regulars, they had to pay them to get in makeup so that they could get banged around on the bridge.
That's funny. Have you seen the stabilized versions of the shots?
I have sometimes.
They're very funny.
It's very funny
to realize how that's what they're doing. Which, to their credit, I'm like, of course that's what they're doing. But I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Now, because Moriarty has control over the ship because he is the ship.
Right.
Part of the crew, part of the ship, part of the crew, part of the ship. It's like a Pirates of the Caribbean reference that I've made in the anyway.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, Picard is like, this is the deal. We'll save your program, and then hopefully someday we'll figure it out. And he's like, well, I guess that's better than dying. You've really have me over a barrel with this one, Jean-Luc.
And he's like, yeah, I guess I do.
And he's like,
but Jean-Luc always is trying to be the most compassionate, but also the most reasonable.
And he's also very diplomatic in a way that I really like. But yeah, so that's basically the whole episode.
Yeah.
And then they dock with the Victory, and then they go back to the ship that Geordi made, and it's like, oh, I got banged up, but I fixed it.
Yep.
But an unsatisfactory ending for me.
It's very like Law and Order ending.
Oh yeah, it's just like, okay, quick, we ran out of time. But like, we don't go back to Data at all. We don't go back to Data or Pulaski. That is never resolved in this episode.
Yeah.
And that should be the epilogue.
Yeah.
And it's not. And I hate it. Because it's a dangling participle. And it just doesn't work for me at the end. It just like really, it clearly, we're already in like the review section with me at least. Because,
right. That's fine.
It clearly like is like a gimmick. It's a gimmick episode. It's a fun gimmick.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly well accomplished in this episode, in my opinion. Whereas the sequel to this, which we'll probably cover, is so good.
Yeah.
And just crushes it.
No,
But
and it's a later season.
mm-hmm.
And I think that they figured out, because one of the pitfalls of TNG towards the beginning is that like something happens in one episode that should have major consequences.
Like the ship's computer becoming sentient.
Yeah, and like we should be still talking about that in the next episode, and we are not.
No, we just do not care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And later on, we get episodes where it's like, we remember this happened.
But I do like the sequel to this episode does come in like season 6 or 7, like near the end, which I love because again, when we review it, we'll get into it. But like, there's this whole idea of like, there's so much going on the Enterprise every ding dang week that they can't remember that the computer is alive. Like, they get distracted.
Well, that's fine in this, because it is kind of a self-contained thing. Like,
sure,
it doesn't really have as much impact on their day-to-day. But the problem is, I think that what you're talking about, the resolution to this episode, is that it should have consequences for Data, and we should see that.
Oh yeah, it should change him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And it just does
Doesn't.
not. It's just a fun adventure serial, which is like fine to have Buck Rogers every once in a while, but like then don't play like it's anything else. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas there are thematic elements of like when Geordi even just states at the beginning, like everyone wants what they can't have.
Yeah.
Data does, Moriarty does, Geordi does, because he wants a mystery.
Yeah.
And also to be used in a way that makes sense. The series Jean-Luc does, which is I just want a night off. And he never gets one.
All right,
he's like,
I have to go on to the holodeck. And...
you can tell he was in the middle of something, and like, it's like, I have this whole evening planned. Ugh, I was watching Orange is the New Black, and you come in with this shit.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, you can tell. And I like that for Jean-Luc. He's so weary all the time.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. Because the series does just beat the crap out of Jean-Luc.
Oh, yeah.
He goes through the ringer.
Yes, almost as much as O'Brien does in Deep Space Nine.
Poor O'Brien. One of my favorite characters.
Great character.
But yeah, so it's 5 because it's a TV series. As far as like,
I mean, are we going to try to rate this as a mystery? Because it's not really a mystery.
It's not a mystery. There's an anomaly, and they have to figure out what to do. Like, it's a problem episode.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, you kind of can't.
Right.
Because it's not a mystery. It's just, like, fun to have.
Right.
Brent Spiner and a deer stalker. I mean, that's cute. Moriarty does say, when he points to Geordi, he goes, that dark fella. And I was like, oof, boof. And here's the thing. Not the worst choice they could have made, but there must have been a conversation of like, okay, we can't be period accurate wholly because that's really rude. But how do we... Oh my gosh, how do we do this?
Yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah,
and again, it was the 80s, and
for sure.
They didn't know quite what to do. It wasn't, certainly not the worst choice they could have made.
Yeah.
Not the best one.
Yeah, he could have said bespectacled.
Right.
I think Geordi's visor is more noticeable than him being black. Am I wrong in this?
No, not at all.
He could have said that blind fellow, which is not as, still a bit rude, I suppose, but it's like, at least not steeped in weird racism.
Yeah.
That fellow with the strange spectacles. Done. Fixed it. Do you see how easy that was?
Yeah.
2 out of 5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not a fan of this one, really. I don't really like Sherlock Holmes. It doesn't pay off emotionally.
Uh-huh.
My favorite part is Pulaski being mean, which I think, again, the problem that is presented is so good. The concept.
Yeah.
is so good. I'll bump it up to a 3 because of also the performance of Daniel Davis. But the concept is so good, and then they just don't have either enough time or wherewithal to really explore it in a way that is emotionally and intellectually satisfying, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way about this episode that I do about The Dark Knight. It's fine. The dialogue is clunky. A lot of the ideas are interesting, but there's a performance in it that is so good that people don't notice the problems with it. That's how I feel about it.
I mean, similar reasons. I'm gonna not talk about The Dark Knight, but I'm gonna give but I'm also gonna give the episode a 3 out of 5. Yeah. And that's why I was surprised. I'm like, yeah, but Moriarty
he is really good.
Quite good. Yeah, it's fun to see the crew dress up in outfits. I do like it. But we needed a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, it's just the epilogue is wrong. Yeah. That's all it is. All you needed was Geordi, Data, and Pulaski at 10 forward going, I guess we all learned a little something.
Yeah.
And that's it. Mm-hmm. And it would take 3 minutes.
At most.
To just be like. Because that's the other thing is like Data bites off more than he can chew.
Yeah.
In a way, the writing of Data is really good in this because he is such like a little kid. Because the minute things go wrong, he goes to his dad like immediately. Yeah. And he's like, Jean-Luc, we have to fix this.
Yeah.
And then like like Geordi gets blamed for messing up the computer, and it's like it's not his fault. Again, I wish they would have a scene with those 3 people, and I wonder if it was cut for time. Because it must have been.
I know. I was just thinking about that too. And I was like, I don't know. That's a misguided choice. Like, I don't need to see the Victory dock with the Enterprise.
Or the little boat thing again.
Right?
Because it's like, oh, I get it. The boat, the ship and the ship got broken and then fixed again. There's a parallel there, but like, not as interesting as the characters that we're supposed to be invested in.
Exactly.
You know? I mean... Because Data does technically solve the case. He figures out who done it.
Yeah.
And he figures out he does solve the problem himself by going, we should play along. He does have to get the captain involved.
Yeah.
But that's what he should have done. So he does technically solve the case. So...
As well as so many other cases along the way.
Mm-hmm. So if Pulaski could have like admitted that would have been emotionally satisfying.
Right.
Because she just like gets off scot-free of like not knowing any of that. Isn't that wild? She doesn't learn anything. No one learns anything in this episode, except for Moriarty, who learns he's gonna die, and that sucks.
Yeah. It like, yeah.
It's so close to being so good.
Yeah. It's almost a great episode, and then they just stop writing. Apparently,
they ran out of time. They spent all their money making the set and not paying the writers. That's it. That's what we think. Are we gonna do the next one?
Yeah.
Ship in a Bottle is the name of the episode.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a really good episode. I like it a lot. It introduces one of my favorite characters, Barclay, who there's the actor's kind of a dingus, to put it lightly. And but the
character's great. He does
really fun.
If you can separate the actual human being from the actor.
Yeah.
Good acting.
Yeah, he's good acting. The character's really fun because he's like a normal person.
Yeah. Which
is great to have because I often think about that with Star Trek. I was like, why is everyone so... I mean, it's because it's the best of the best.
Right. We're focused on the main crew.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas at least with Voyager, a lot of them are kind of scrappier, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
They're not as good at their jobs because they're thrust into a weird situation, and then also half of them aren't Starfleet,
right?
Which I love.
Yes, that is very interesting.
Yeah,
the Maquis.
Yes. So, watch Star Trek or don't,
and we'll explain it to you.
Yeah,
and that'll be fun for you either way. To hear us try to explain Star Trek while talking about not that many episodes of it.
Oh my gosh. This is the worst backdoor pilot we could have done. But yeah, no, watch Star Trek. It's pretty good. It's very comforting because everything is generally speaking, wrapped up nicely in a bow at the end. And it's all people trying to do their best, which is nice. And,
nice.
You know, it's good escapism, you know? So if you want to not think about certain things, it's a good option.
Like the
Novel coronavirus.
novel coronavirus.
Yeah.
I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to a close.
Engage.
Ah.